All right, so I say today we are supposed to look at the classification of the law, and I will also talk about the legal profession. So we are still dealing with the first part of the module, basically, which is under the Zambian legal system. So now when we talk about the classification of the law, it is very important to classify the law for several reasons. And people's general understanding is that law is law. So for as long as we refer to it as law, it does not matter exactly maybe the type of law that we are talking about and the implications that may be attached to that. However, you need to know that law is not just one particular branch, or there's just one type of law, but law can be broken down into different classes. Law can be broken down into different branches. And this is simply done so that we can be more specific in terms of understanding the nature of the issue involved. So if you were to approach me with a case, I will first of all listen to your issue. For example, if you come to tell me that someone is owing me 30,000 kwacha, we agreed that this person would pay me by 30th July, of which the person did not pay me, and I wish to charge interest over that date that was obtained by that particular person. I need to understand very well which type of law is applicable. Because when we understand the branch of law applicable, that is what will determine the procedure that we are going to follow. That will also determine the outcome of the case. Let me give you another example. If there's a person who has been killed along the road, so maybe where we're living in a neighborhood, we just hear gunshots, and thereafter we rush to the crime scene. We find pools of blood, and we find maybe a knife at the scene, and we also find a firearm, for example. In that case, we need to understand the nature of that case. So from these two examples that I have given, I have picked on them deliberately so that we appreciate the importance of classifying the law. So the first thing that I mentioned was that we need to know exactly what type of law we are talking about. So I will still get back to those examples. Now, to begin with, the first classification that I'll give is public and private law. So when we talk about public law is basically that branch of law which deals with any issues that affect the majority of the members of a particular society. Then it will be public law. So an example that I can give of public law is, for example, criminal law. We are all affected by crimes. Whether you are a victim, or you know about it or you don't know about it, but the fact is, once the level of crime goes up, then we are also affected. And the other example that I can give is constitutional law as public law. Why is constitutional law public? Constitutional law is the branch that deals with issues of the constitution. We're just talking about the importance of the constitution. So you see that as citizens of Zambia, whether you're interested in the constitution, you know about the constitution or not, it does not matter. But at the end of it all, whatever will be enshrined in the constitution will affect you and I. The other branch of public law that I can give as an example is administrative law. And administrative law deals with the exercise of power by people who hold public offices. So we can look at, for example, maybe a minister. If a minister makes a certain decision, we can question that decision under administrative law. So it is talking about people holding public offices. So you can see that all these are in public interest. But it differs from what is known as private law. Private law only affects the individuals concerned. When you enter into an employment contract, for example, your employer does not pay you. That cannot affect all of us as citizens of Zambia. Some of you could be into some form of business, or maybe you supply goods somewhere. What you will realize is that as you are supplying those particular goods, you might need to sign some documentation. And this documentation is guiding both you and the person you're supplying to, for example. So that is a contract. Should anything go wrong, it is just between you and the person involved. That is another example of private law. So we can talk about contracts, law of contracts. We can talk about employment law, that is private. We can talk about law of torts, that is also private law. We can talk about family law, that is also private law. There are several examples that we have. Now, it is not enough to just classify a branch of law as either falling under public or private, but we need to further distinguish in terms of maybe determining the nature of the issue and the liability. Lastly, the sanction that might be imposed on the wrongdoer. Therefore, we have civil and criminal law. So I will take your questions later. Just allow me to finish so that we don't disturb the flow of the recording. So when we talk about civil law regulates those branches of law where the commission of offenses is classified as less serious. And the end result in a civil case basically is compensation. Now, when we talk about criminal law involves the commission of very serious offenses, and a crime is defined as a moral wrong against the state, which is punishable by law. So you will realize that the end result in a criminal case is punishment. Examples of civil actions, we can have breach of contract, we can have divorce cases, we can have termination of employment, we can talk about defamation, land disputes, those are civil actions. Criminal cases, you can talk about murder, theft, burglary, robbery. Those are examples of criminal cases. So from the two examples that I gave, the first one where you are being owed 30,000 kwacha is a case which falls under civil law. The second example where I talked about you rushing to the roadside, to the crime scene, then we are talking about criminal law. Why is the classification important? Will help us, first of all, to classify the offense that has been committed. Because further, as much as we can say it is a civil offense, we need to identify the type of civil offense that it is. And apart from that, we need to also know which procedure we are going to use in seeking justice.